Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Frederick. I'm the founder and publisher of Saturday AM, the world's most diverse manga brand. And I'm sitting outside of a Starbucks this evening. And we are having a really awesome opportunity to chat with the 2024 class of our annual event called Summer of Manga. This is where, since we've been in business for over a decade, we've been doing Summer of Manga in one form or another for 8 years. Um, and this is a really exciting um, year for us because we've had our 10th anniversary. We've had so many great things happening with our partnerships with these big companies like SanDisk and so forth. And we finally were able to do the Summer of Manga that I really wanted to do for some time. And it's actually part of an initiative we're going to talk more about that I've been working on for a long time as well at this year's AMA NYC is Austin Harvey. You guys know Austin well, Austin Harvey-Younis. He has been the lead editor for many of our content for a couple of years now, and he has led Summer of Manga for a few years now. And so Austin has done a really awesome job of taking all the entries we got and with a group of other creators and staff members, distilling it down to six. We're not going to have all six here tonight, but these six that we have are easily some of the best artists we've ever had. And that's saying something considering that we've had artists like Fred Torninger of Gunhild, Oscar Fong of National Killer of the Ghost, Jeffrey John Luis of Yellow Stringer, and then a new title that we're about to announce soon. So this is really cool. So Austin, tell everybody a little bit about this year's crop of talent and what stood out to you about them.
Oh, well, hey, how's it going? I'm Austin Harvey-Younis. Yeah, this year is definitely a little bit different this year. The main thing being the sponsorship with Battle Quest Comics. I think this will be our first year that we were actually sponsored. And it's really cool because there's a cash prize to be won, which what's awesome about this year is, the level of competition that is added with this. But most of these creators that we have here today, they were really, really, really valuing the experience that they would gain from this. And each person here working on their story, just lovely, lovely people, absolutely down to earth, just great people to talk to. I just had a joy, having calls with each one of them. Each of their stories, unique art styles, awesome. Very talented folks, and yeah, I'll stop talking because it's about them, not me.
Yeah, and so what those of you who can see, obviously, if you're watching the video for this, what you'll see is that not everyone's on camera, and I'm sitting outside where I'm utilizing the Wi-Fi to record the session. So even if they're on camera, I can see on my end at least that sometimes it might disrupt because there's just not enough bandwidth. So we apologize for that, but there's no mandate that these folks appear on camera. There never has been. But on the flip side, if you can see or if you can hear them, we hope that what you'll do is appreciate the diversity that we have running throughout this year's crop. In the past, we've always had creators from various countries. This year, it's not as diverse on the country side of things. I think when you hear people today, you'll hear that most of them are from America. But these are people who represent different ethnicities, different orientations, different communities. And I think this is really cool that we're in a position to have, just again, wonderful talent with unique perspectives that they're bringing for people to enjoy really cool original stories. So with that being said, we're going to start off, I think, first. And again, I think the cameras are kind of going in and out because of this. We're going to start off first with Goldie. Goldie is based in Atlanta. And Goldie, I had everything ready to go, and then I lost it here. Here we go. All right. I can hear your heart. And I just want to say that the tagline for this was a love this powerful needs no words, but some will still try to stop them. Now you guys will see the image on the screen here in a moment, but I gotta say, Goldie, I really love when we first saw the art, the image was so powerful and just captured so much emotion. We haven't really done in Saturday history. We haven't done a lot of romances, so I'm kind of curious to hear you describe this concept and what kind of what inspired you to create it and what you're hoping people kind of take away from it.
Gotcha. So my name's Goldie, and my story is about two of my characters that I really just love their story. I've had these characters for over a decade now, and I really just have been wanting to tell their story because the female lead is, and she's always had a hard time getting people to understand her. So the only person that really understands her is her sister, who can kind of act as like her like spokesperson, but she's sick of it. She's tired. She's just wants somebody to understand her. So until she meets this poor man, who actually goes through the effort to learn about her and learn her facial cues, anything that she subtle, very subtle, like eyebrow movements, he can understand them. And so I just wanted to like give a start to that story because I haven't done that yet. So it's been years in the making, basically.
So I have a couple of things to say. First of all, I may bleep that one part you gave because that's why I rewrote the part of your tagline for the story
Gotcha.
because I didn't want to spoil that part because I thought that was so cool that you have this unique aspect of a character that we rarely see in stories, especially in comics or manga. And I thought, I don't want to spoil it, so we're gonna probably bleep that for people. But
Okay.
um, but that said, though, I was there a particular thing that inspired you, without naming it, that inspired you with that particular aspect of the character?
I've read other kinds of manga with like similar types of characters where there's a bit of a disability or anything like that, and I don't usually see that. So it was something that I wanted to do as well.
And is there a manga that you're into that you really like, or what a manga that inspire you currently?
There's one called Silent Voice. That got turned into an anime movie. It was like so inspiring, and I just fell in love with that whole concept.
That's awesome. And then, so last but not least, is so when people have a chance to check the short story out, is there anything in particular you want them to take away from the story, or things that you hope that they'll consider when looking at the story?
Um, Goodness, that was the hardest question for me. Basically, taking away like warm, heartfelt feelings that they can. I really wanted to like tug at heartstrings, really. So I hope that that came across in my story.
I read it. I thought so, but again, I'm excited for people to check it out. It really struck me. Like I said, we've not done a lot of romances, hardly any. So when I was reading the story, I just thought like, wow, this is good. I mean, we've asked in the past for romances, and I just thought the way that you put it together, and especially the difficulty of those two, I thought was really special. So I hats off to you. We're so excited to have your story, and I'm hoping that people will really look for it and give it a chance. Out of all the stories we have, again, it's "I Can Hear Your Heart" by Goldie, whose symbol for IG, I believe, is Goldie, GOLDIE, LOX, Locks, Box, BOX. So thank you, Goldie, and we'll have one more question for you at the end here. Let's go next to Damon. Damon story. This was one of the last ones that we put forward. It's called Midnight Hands, and it's got these two, just like Goldie's thing, had these really cool characters on it. These cool character designs that you can tell were clearly in a romance. This one is different. This one's kind of got this energy going on to it that feels a little chaotic, feels a little fun, feels a little romantic perhaps. And the tagline for it was, "When Corey meets a wild space pirate, he must choose his past or his future." So, again, recognizing that we're trying to be, not too descriptive because we want people to read the story and enjoy it. Tell me a little bit about the story, how you came across or came up with the idea of the story, and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, I just kind of, man. So literally, I got the message for this, and then Austin kind of sent me a thing that was like, "Hey, um, can you come up with a story for this thing?" And at first, it was like Thursday, and he wanted it about Saturday, and then I was kind of like, "What? That's crazy." But then as soon as then right after he called me, I had this thought in my head, this idea that just like ran through really fast. It was just kind of a shock, and then I was just kind of like, oh, this is what I want to do. It kind of mixes everything that I like, which is like action, romance, and like comedy. And I wanted to do something that was it was really inspired by like Tenchi Muyo. I had just rewatched the series recently, and I just really love some of the characters in there, and the vibe of it was really just like this fun, lighthearted, like but like action filled world. So I was like, let's do something similar to that.
It's really cool, and your art style has got a lot of quirky energy to it. I get the Tenchi Muyo thing, which is a really great, by the way. That's an old fun.
Oh man, I come from a lot of different stuff. I read a lot of manga, I read a lot of comics. So artistically, I was really I kind of developed my style like from just loving like Naruto and when I was working on this, I was kind of thinking about D and Angel. I don't know if you ever read that series. It the characters have really big eyes, but the line work is really well done. So I was just trying to do something similar to that. And thinking about Fooly Cooly a little bit too.
I'm happy to hear you say that because I didn't want to ruin the concept that you have, but immediately what I thought of when I read it and saw it was Fooly Cooly.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, that was the idea. It was I wanted to have that kind of energy. I wanted the female lead character to have that kind of have this like chaotic energy to her that like you only see in these like anime protagonist characters, and hopefully get to like explore that a little bit more, but like introduce it in this story. So yeah.
Again, you've got this great story, and I've got to ask the name Midnight Hands. Then would that give anything away? But it's kind of when I think of like all the things you mentioned you were inspired by, the Midnight Hands. It was like, wait a minute.
Doesn't really give anything away. It's the name. It is supposed to be the name of her ship. Also, it's just a reference to a song that I really like. I do that a lot. Hopefully that's not a problem.
No, of course not. No, of course not. It's manga. Have you heard some of the names in manga?
Yeah.
So no, that's fantastic. That you got an interesting setup there for that, which is pretty cool. And you would say that this is kind of more like a romance science fiction type thing.
Yeah, it's like a romance. It's an action romance, a romance action comedy thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, comedy as well. Yeah, that sounds really cool. And again, I think people are gonna really dig it. When I flipped through the art for it, what stood out to me again was just how quirky the art was, which meant how wacky and fun the situations appeared to be with the characters. That really spoke to me. And of course, just like in the first story that Goldie has that we talked about, I'm really excited, and we're going to talk about this more with Emma here in a moment. But I'm really excited at just seeing the diversity of characters. When I started Saturday, and it was always a thing to me, and it's something I still see that some folks do, which is is just the notion of like, well, I'm going to create the next spiky haired person. I'm like, we've already seen that. We've seen that. Like I want to see something different. I want to see characters who really feel unique and feel distinctive or have distinctive traits that allow them to serve as more interesting characters. That's to me, when manga is at its core, a very exciting art form. And so like I said, I think with yours, it's really like I really dug the way that you had your characters depicted. I thought it was a very, very just interesting way of doing it, and it made me really excited to read through the story.
Yeah. The goal with the characters was to have them have that like manga energy of like this is the style is a little bit impossible, but at the same time to be more referential to like different cultural, Black cultural backgrounds, at least in this case, and like maybe some other stuff. And the hope was just to have like the characters feel unique and to carry their like personalities on their back a little bit.
I love that. That's really cool. So I'm excited for it. I can't wait for people to check it out. We're going to come back to you at the end here and ask a couple of questions, but now I want to turn it over to Emma. So Emma has what I'm really excited for a few reasons. The title, if which you're going to see on the screen here as we talk, is called "Witch Family Ephemera." Emma, by the way, I'm sorry, just real quickly, I forgot to say this, but you can follow Damon of Midnight Hands. You're going to read the story, and we'll have the link for his information in the issue for Saturday AM, which we'll talk about in a moment. But if you want to follow Damon, you can do so at Damon. That's DAIMON. Drew this, which is DREW for Drew, and then this THIS. You can follow him and see all of his amazing work, and we hope you do so both before and after Midnight Hands, and do the same thing with Goldie for I Can Hear Your Heart. But in talking with Emma, we're talking about Witch Family Ephemera. You can follow Emma at Emma EMMA Martello MARTELLO. And Emma, just to make sure, is that the handle for Twitter or for IG?
That's for Twitter, yeah. But you can
Twitter,
also
okay.
find, yeah, there's not really an active Instagram, so we'll just direct them to Twitter.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure because I know there was some issues before. The plot breakdown for this, real quickly, folks, with the tease, is that Sophie, who's our main character, has discarded her occult upbringing, which could cause the end of the world. What will she do now? Which kind of gives you a sense of the sort of fun and the sort of potentially big stakes chaos that this cool character interacts with. You will see on the screen this character has this awesome hat, and immediately made me think of Witch Hat Atelier, which of course is the wonderful Kodansha manga that's just blown up.
Can't wait for the anime.
Illustrated. Exactly. It's all the anime. So when this came through as one of the pitches we're going to look at, I was instantly excited. Having had a chance to see Emma's work, I'm even more excited. So Emma, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a part of Summer of Manga this year, for being here tonight on the chat. What inspired Witch Family Ephemera? And of course, there's a unique thing about the character that, as we've been talking about diversity, that I hope you'll touch on. And so talk a little bit about the series.
Sure. So inspiration wise, and especially with my art style, I love Soul Eater, Okubo's Atsushi Okubo's series, which when I read that and watched the anime back in the day really shaped my tastes, you could say. And so I always wanted to write something that was dual protagonist, where you had two characters who had to rely on each other and have some kind of, it's always fun when there's an imbalance, right? So one is more knowledgeable, one is less knowledgeable, but one is younger, one is older. So that's sort of an element that I'm bringing over from Soul Eater, where like two have to work in concert in order to get done what has to get done. There's also elements of Cardcaptor Sakura, because when I was young and was living as a boy, I still loved magical girls. And so there was always also like a seed there of, I wish I could be just like Sakura. And so then, as you were alluding to, the main character, Sophie, she is a trans girl and believes that a world of magic and mystery is something that's not realistic for her. And I believe that by tapping into that sort of hopelessness, that it really gets at something that I feel like a lot of trans and queer people feel, that their world is being molded for them. And when you're a magical girl, of course, you go from living a normal life to transforming, and then you're in a world of magic and fighting monsters and defending the planet. And so there's I wouldn't explicitly call this a magical girl story, but it sort of is. And if I can you let me talk, I'll just keep yapping, I promise you.
No, you go ahead. You've gone places that I actually want to follow up on, but
Great.
because you touched on a few things I thought were really
Mhm.
interesting, because we're dealing with a couple of trans artists who have,
Mm.
who've had similar ideas about what you just described regarding how society kind of frames it. But
Oh,
so I
yes.
love that. But continue on though. I do want to touch back on that though.
Yeah. So I also wanted to write a modern fantasy, mainly because I'm reading and really enjoying Dandadan right now, which is absolutely unreal in terms of art and storytelling. And I especially want like that feeling of people who could be just plucked from regular life being thrust into incredible circumstances that, and in that case, it's a lot of, aliens and spirits and stuff. But in my case, I really like the idea of cryptids being the sort of central monsters. So there is a certain one that appears that I won't ruin, but I have sort of a love of cryptozoology and cryptids and mythical monsters from more modern times, which I think would be really fun to explore in a shonen kind of setting.
So, out of curiosity, I
Mm,
love the point about the cryptids. Out of
mm,
curiosity, when you think about series and we talk about the shonen genre, one of the things, when I created Saturday AM, and one of the things that took me a while to kind of get other people to understand or embrace was the idea that all of the genre specifics are only genre specifics in the context of what is or demographic or category specifics. They're
mhm.
only that way in the sense of what the broader context is. But what makes each of them unique does not require you to have, like, there's not a set thing that makes them unique. So, for example, you have a shonen manga, and you can have a shonen manga about someone who wants to be king of the pirates. And, that series, can be done with not a great deal of character insight, but more about world building and the sense of adventure and the sense of freedom.
Mhm.
Whereas you can have a shonen series about being king of the ninjas, and that is really about, and I think it's one of the reasons why it's caught on so well in the West, is because that one really is about work ethic and about the notion of everyone not believing in you. Naruto is presented as a very
Yeah.
pudgy kid. He's not this. He's not the classically handsome character the way that Sasuke is portrayed, and he's not very smart. He's just lazy, and yet he refuses to allow what people think about him define him. When you are dealing with the shonen series where the protagonist is trans, I wonder what new insights, and you touched on some of this, is why I want to come back to that,
Mhm.
allow the story to allow us to see shonen in a new way, because we're having some of that. And they'll just say again that when I created Clockstriker, for example, one of my whole conceits with Clockstriker was I was so tired of the idea that shonen could not have a black protagonist, much less a black female protagonist. It's like,
Mm, mm.
who, like, it's like, we all have hopes and dreams, are striving to do something. Why would something like that prohibit the character from achieving things? So when
Yeah.
you have a trans character, what how do you view the idea of shonen, and how that can be, and what elements can.
Mhm. So for me, I think there is a commonality between not just successful shonen series, but shonen in general, and that's fighting spirit, where your main character is, uh, it seems like they're about to lose, and then their willpower lets them pull through and turn the tables and win the fight, or what have you. And I think that's sort of every good shonen protagonist, I think, has approaches that from a certain angle. And so I think that's something that is just generally human and not just, a male or a female protagonist or trans or what have you. So I think, however, that when you have a main protagonist who is a trans girl, they've already sort of overcome difficulties in their life that give them strength. And so then I think being able to channel that into then that shonen style battle where they have to, at the key moment, embrace their power and turn the tables, I think it adds just an extra layer,
So yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm really I'm tickled to see, to go back and reabsorb the story now and kind of get a sense of what special, like, what unique perspectives come out of having a trans character, and in a shonen style series. And I could not agree with you more about the notion of fighting spirit. That is so well said, because that really is at the core of shonen, right? It's different from
Right.
seinen or shoujo or josei, which can have fighting, can have those things, but that spirit is a really big part of shonen. I think you really hit the nail on the head with that. So again, we'll come back. We got one final question for you, and we got one more person to interview here, which is Fred. But again, folks, Witch Family Ephemera. This is really cool. You're gonna love the art style. You're gonna really love the art style. It's really, really inviting. It's got a lot of personality to it, and it's got a lot of detail in it. And of course, having this wonderful trans character, you're going to fall in love with the character precisely because, aside from the gigantic stakes of their decision that they've got to make, is this really interesting character that is made all the more unique and all the more fun because of their unique perspective. We get some glimpse of into. It's not about that, but it captures the unique aspects of a character who's struggling with these various things going on. So, Witch Family Ephemera, one of the great 6 titles coming out for this year's Summer of Manga. Make sure you check that out. We're going to come back to Emma in a moment. But our final person, and again, we have 6 people, 2 of which, one is in France and could not make it at this time, and the other one, we think maybe had something come up, they couldn't make it. But we will try to do something with them in the near future, so you have a chance to hear from these incredible creators. But next is Fred. Fred is Just Button, as he is known on, I believe, IG in particular, maybe all the platforms, Just Button. If you've seen, and you'll see, of course, the screen here, but if you've seen it, this was one of the ones that I think everybody was kind of like, oh, like this is different, because this has that kind of like really fun, very like this is capturing identity in just such a fun way. I mean, this is a Black female lead character in one aspect of it, and she's got a name that anyone in the Black culture recognizes, Fatima. There's also other elements to the character. She's got, frankly, a body type that is not the standard super thin body type we see in manga, which again is something that oftentimes bothers me when we see manga characters that are people of color, because part of our phenotype is diversity, from our hair to our body types to the way we carry ourselves. And so I was immediately drawn when I saw Fred's depiction of this. The tagline, the title is FFF Fast X Food. And we'll talk a little bit about that, because Fred had like 10 different titles, and we ultimately got this title. But the tagline for this is fast food, martial arts training, the perfect combo. And so from that perspective, there's a lot of stuff there, and again, hopefully Fred will not spoil, because I try to be very cautious when I put this thing together for that. But there's a really fun thing here with that. You may pick it up already, but there's a really fun aspect of this between the character designs and the name that may give you a sense of a little bit of the kind of uniqueness of the story. But first and foremost, Fred, thank you for being here. Like I said, your art style immediately had me rooting to see what you could do and so forth. Tell me more about Fatima and about this world that you're building.
Yeah. Fatima. So this is an idea that came up right before the pandemic. It was an idea of just like, oh wait, because I grew up doing taekwondo in what's known as a McDojo, right? It's a pejorative thing that you go on like bodybuilder.com and they'll be like, oh, you trained in a McDojo. That's not like real. But it was literally in a strip mall next to like a Dunkin' Donuts on the other side, and there was like a chum bucket version of the same like taekwondo studio across the street. It was wild. And so the inception of the idea was just like squish it together. You got Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, you got High Kicks, and number 3 with cheese on the other side. So that immediately just started writing itself. And in the background of like teaching, in the background of because I am an educator. No matter what I'm doing, I'm always either running a class on animation or giving critique to someone on the Black and Animated Discord. Like something is going on in terms of like teaching in the background. And so that's kind of where the spark of this character comes from. It's that, and then it's like the gasoline for the idea was making things under capitalism. Like when you work a 40-hour job and you want to do something on top of that, it's you've got to stretch yourself thinner. Like that's the most productive 8 hours of your day are spent earning a wage, and then you get home and it's like, okay, now time to really work. And it's like human beings weren't built for that. Human beings weren't built for working that hard. And Fatima is this person who is, so it's this character just keeps building out of what kind of person would it take to be able to do these jobs at the same time? What kind of person would it take to be able to be an inspiration and also sustain herself in the situation that we're all living in? Like, and that's where the, a fast food place with the name of Mammies comes in. Like it's social commentary on top of really fun and deceptively simple characters. Like I want my characters to be understood within a single sentence. You see Fatima, she says, all right, let's get training, let's get going. And you're like, all right, I have an idea who she is. And as the story goes on, the layers pile up, the situations add in, and it just gets more and more interesting. So yeah, no, I'm just really grateful for Saturday AM for like giving me a deadline, just like 20 pages, get it done. No, that was incredibly helpful. Shout outs to Austin for the help on that. Like I honestly, the project took on a particular flavor because of the situation it's in now. Because it's like, get it out, wrap it up. And then like one particular note from Austin too was focusing on Fatima's first student. His name is Sprout. He is a very, very tall child, and he's literally got like leaves coming out of his forehead. Yeah.
They'll see the image on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like focusing, Fatima's got a whole backlog. I remember Lauren mentioned that their characters have been in their head for 10 years. I think everybody who's created anything can relate. Like that is so real. I'm so glad you said that. What was I talking about?
Well, let me interject real quickly and just say that I love what you just said about and again, I don't want to spoil too much about the story, so I won't get too deep into it. But I just love what you said about the characters' struggle with trying to balance these things, right? They're trying to balance these things because, again, this McDojo, again, people can figure it out, but they're trying to balance something. And I think that when we talk again, and I'm going to say this a lot, of course, is one of the reasons our critics hate us so much, because we talk about diversity all the time. I talk about diversity all the time. But the Black experience, like it or not, is one about having to like make do with very limited things. And it's about trying to constantly make things happen, even though you might not have everything that you need. And through that sort of adversity is what kind of defines our cult community's struggles. And I just thought it was really, when I saw that the concept of it and thought about how that's such an interesting idea, to then hear you talk about the character, like again struggling with that. I thought just having to try to get it done. I thought like that's a really intriguing idea, because we rarely see that, right? Like to Emma's point earlier about the way Shonen handles or the way Shonen escalates from these battle series, is that it really always comes down to, right, the character has to juggle things in the heat of battle, not in the concept of actually building a life or building whatever their overall goal is. And so I love that you put that in there, because again, I think number one, I think it's so intrinsic to our community, but I think it also is a really cool aspect of a character who is trying to get to the next level, but does have like a very uneven circumstance, and they've got to navigate that uneven circumstance. It's not like they're like Prince who's trying to become a king. And this is someone who's like got to juggle two jobs. Right. To just
right,
get,
what you know,
where
right?
they got to be. That's right. Yes, exactly. You and I both know. And evidently, we both have had a similar experience. But Yeah. With that said, were there any manga titles that you looked at and thought, hey, I want to capture this? Maybe in the fighting, maybe in some of the comedy within it.
So the working title, I have not been able to come up with a title for this piece for the longest. I have not been able to find something that really encapsulates. Did I cut out for a sec? Is that good? My phone just went into low power.
We still
Okay,
heard you. Yeah, so
excellent. I've been trying to like encapsulate this story in a title for a long, long time. And so for the longest time, the like running title, the like working title was FFF, right? It's the Fabulous Fireball Fatima, Fabulous Fireball Fatima. You know what I mean? Like that has been the FFF, and then like taking that alliteration into like chapter titles, and you could play with that later on down the story. Like my writing style is all about like throwing bricks. You're throwing stuff up in the air that you can maybe catch later. It just hangs in the air until you reach up and you grab it again. And you're like, oh yeah. And then everyone thinks you're like, oh, you planned that ahead of time. It's like, I was just throwing stuff in the air. But Fast X Food hit me when I was listening to it was the creator of Spy X Family. Hearing him talk about, and they were like, oh my God, because it's with Hunter X Hunter, right? The idea is that it's a hunter versus hunter, it's hunters hunting hunters. Like there's so much with the X, with the conflict between hunters. What is the X in Spy Family? Where does that come from? And his response was like, yeah, it just looked cool. Like it looked too plain with just Spy Family. So you can pronounce it as Spy Family, but the X is just there as a marketing, as something almost like the translating Attack on Titan rather than Attack of the Titans. You could just as easily have named it Attack of the Titans and localized it, but Attack on Titan is immediately like, oh, what's going on there? What do you mean Attack on Titan? What does that mean? And then that the writer was able to pull that down at the end of the series. No spoilers here, but like, and be like, oh yeah, that's why it's called Attack. You know what I mean? Like, anyway.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah. So I'm still
Yeah.
I'm still working on it. Basically.
No, well, first of all, again, these are short stories, and I think as we come to the end of this chat, I think one of the things I want to pose to all of you guys is, and you kind of hit on it, Fred. So I'll start with you on this. I got two questions to ask the group. The first one is, what about this process was interesting to you or felt good for you, just creatively? And you kind of hit on this a little bit in relationship to the fact that by kind of forcing a deadline and other things, it kind of gave you the ability to kind of like bring your ideas down to kind of like the essence, and then it seemed a lot clearer. And I'll let you speak to that, and then I want everyone to speak to that, and we'll go person to person. But what I will say, that's so good to hear about that is when I started the company, that was always a challenge, right? I mean, there are a lot of folks who want to, Saturday was the first that were going to create, manga outside of Japan. But my whole conceit, having spent a lot of time, in the video game industry and spent a lot of time working on IP at the corporate level, was understanding kind of the genesis of creating really content that really connects with people. And I think that, there is a thing in Shonen Jump, of course, where it's a magazine that's coming out. It's not an individual series. The series is part of a magazine. The magazine is what has the weight, not the individual series. The series wants to get to the point where it has weight, but initially it's all about the magazine. And as a result of that, the creators, what makes it kind of the DNA of Shonen Jump or a lot of these manga magazines in Japan is that they're competing. Every week they're competing to get you to want to check out their stuff. And if it's not interesting and people don't fill out those survey cards or more people are talking online about series, then you're in a really tough position. So, so the challenge a lot of times when when I was starting the company, I would see when I talked to creators or talk to folks who had companies that tried to, do what we were doing and stuff. The thing that always stood out to me as unique about Saturday was that I would always tell our creators, like, stop trying to be Naruto. Stop trying to create a 36 volume series. That's not how the world works. If you're lucky enough to get a graphic novel, it better sell to get a volume 2. It better sell to get a volume 3. And in a world where outside of Japan, where there isn't a manga magazine, there's not a weekly release schedule for a manga magazine that's being sold for a couple of bucks at your local gas station or what have you, the way it is in Japan or convenience store, then it really is a whole different process, a whole different feel to it. And therefore, again, the challenge a lot of young creators have is that their ideas are vast.
Yeah.
They don't know how to bring it down to a core, how to bring it down to something that they can really get behind and go with, because they can think of everything. Well, I got to do this because it's going to affect volume 36. You're
Yep.
not going to get to a volume 36 probably. So let's
Yep.
talk about what's an interesting story right now. And that was, I used to have this line with Austin and them, is that you got to put people in the box. Because you put them in the box and you put walls up, all of those creative ideas that they're shooting out of their head has to bounce off of something. And eventually it's going to end up hitting a target that's worthwhile because it doesn't have a lot of room to go. So when you talked about that, I thought, yeah, like that was the whole point of that, is to, number one, that's why the event is all about short stories and not about creating a story. It's about short stories. Show yourself you can create a story at the beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
But to that point, though, talk to me about you and your experiences and what did you feel like was really helpful about this? Obviously, the one thing we talked about, but what else kind of like, you thought really kind of gave you some insight in terms of the creativity process for this?
I really like the metaphor of the box. I like the metaphor of the box. That once there's a container on which the ideas can bounce off of, suddenly it starts to congeal into something. Yeah, I always use food metaphors. I think food is my creative outlet outside of drawing. It's something that I can do, that I can be bad at, that I can mess up in my cooking, and it doesn't mean that I'm terrible. Like it's not as close to the soul, right? Sometimes I succeed. Sometimes I make some dope cornbread. Sometimes I make, and whatever I made last night. But about this process, it was just a good opportunity to get something pulled out of your hands. God, where do I even start? I also like the point about the industries being different, like the infrastructure being different. There isn't a printer printing newsprint versions of these comics and then putting them in gas stations. That's a great idea. I think drawing from that tradition, drawing from the specific manga tradition, I think the thing that sticks out to me most is Araki's quote, Hirohiko Araki, the JoJo's creator: "Get him to turn the page. Get him to turn the page. That's what your job is. Get him to turn the page." Look him up. Definitely look him up. His like process getting into the industry, as someone who's like coming at it from like a completely non-intuitive way of thinking about it. Like he has. I am convinced that artist has zero intuition. They have just logically built up block by block their style, their substance. Anyway, so for Saturday AM, yeah, just having a set deadline. We're going to be done. We're starting here. And now I also want to shout out Austin too for.
Oh yeah.
I want to shout out Austin for centering Sprout at the beginning of the story. This is a teacher and a student dynamic. And in that dynamic, a good teacher is someone who can make the student the focus. And so seeing that I was doing that in the story, I wanted to center Fatima because she's the one I'm interested. Like, she's not the most interesting, but she's like got a history, she's got a past. 12-year-olds don't have a past. But so that is interesting to me as a writer, but what's interesting to an editor or a reader is the here and now. Get them to turn the page. And that was notes that I got from Austin, notes that I got from this process.
I don't want to say the obvious, but I taught Austin everything he knows, so that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. Goldie, what about you? We haven't talked to you in a while, so let's get back to you. What was your feeling about the process? Was there something that stood out to you that you found really enlightening, or something you found really, really difficult?
I'm part of this comic website as well, so I've been used to deadlines for like since 2017. It's called endervoid.com, and it's just like kind of like this, where it's a comic contest. So that kind of like really like let me get into a comfort zone of just like, okay, I have this much time. I got to do this, and this today. I got to do this, and this tomorrow. Like I was doing like 2 pages a day, basically. And then like, my process, like I try to streamline it as best as I can. So it's like, do the inks, do the color, do the toning, do the bubbles, everything like that.
That's did you find that, like you said, you were already in a group, so you already dealt with some of this stuff already, which is fantastic. Did you find that there was different things going on with as you were doing the process? Did you find that just having the deadline, having the page count, that those help a little bit, or were you already aware of these things, so you were able to really streamline your tactics and really get to telling the story that you felt like pretty quickly?
Oh, definitely helped with that page count, because I could have
Yeah.
I could have made a 50-page comic.
We've done this in the past. And we've actually done where creators could, like, if you look at all these issues of Summer of Manga, we've actually had creators choose their page count, and within reason. I mean, we would evaluate them to see if we thought they could even pull that off. But yeah, we've tried that, and it's a pain because they'll bite off more than they can chew, or they'll realize this is probably not what they thought it was,
Mhm.
and it just ends up not quite working. So I'm glad to hear the page count help. That is actually nice to hear. I'm glad to hear the page count, because this is the first time we set like a universal page count for everybody, and that was
Yeah.
very different than normal. Okay, so I'll come back to you with one last question. But Damon, what about you? Was there anything in this process that you felt like really worked for you and helped to, enlighten things for you, or were difficult?
Yeah, I love working with the editor. Like, it was really cool to have somebody during the process to work ideas off of and to have conversations with. Like, there was a point where I wasn't going to do this story. I was going to switch off and do another story because Austin didn't really he felt like it was the beginning of something. And I kind of had to go back and just be like, no, this is the story I really want to do. But that made me, when we were talking about it, also make sure that the story was clear and that it worked, and that parts added to it. Because at first I had it set at like 12 pages, and then it kind of expanded to like 15, just because one, I needed to add a little bit of extra so that the story kind of came together a little bit more clearly for readers. And then two, there was a part that I was like, let's do some more action stuff in it. So it ended up being a really fun experience to have somebody to work back and forth from it. Whereas I think when I did I also did this this DC thing, the milestone initiative, like a
Right,
few
I
years
did hear
ago.
about this. Yes, I heard about this. Yeah.
And that was cool, but in that experience I didn't get to work as closely with my editor. He kind of got COVID, and so it was like we kind of just dealt with that there were issues.
I know people at DC, so I'm glad you at least made that part clear. Like, I didn't get to work with them very well. It's like, whoa. We're not saying DC sucked at this. You're like, they got COVID. I'm like, let's lead with COVID. He got COVID, and therefore I wasn't able to work with him well. I'm like, the internet will jump on that, and Harvey see, I told y'all DC sucked. Like, let's make sure we get that right. But I got you.
The internet is going internet. But yeah, so it was nice to have that experience with somebody, also to work on my own story. I think when I worked in the DC project, I worked with another writer, this dude Jared Pratt, who's really cool. And I don't have a ton of confidence in myself as a writer. So having a deadline, having a situation where I had to really come up with something and try to stick to it, and was a good challenge to have to overcome. And I hope people really like the story.
That's well said, Damon. That was very well said. And so I'll come back to you, like I said, I'll come back to all of you guys for one final question. Let's finish this first question with Emma. And Emma, as you went through the process of creating this with Summer of Manga, what was your read with this? Maybe you had experiences that are similar with like Goldie or Damon in terms of like a different process. What was your experience, and how do you think this worked for you, or helped or didn't help?
Yeah. Like Damon was saying, you come in with maybe this big idea of all the pieces that you want to be in there. And there is that hard 20-page limit. And so if you try to, I've made one-shots on my own before that I just was like, okay, this is how much the page count hashed out to, so I'll just make it that. But with this, it's like, if there's too many elements, then it's going to feel like it's too crammed in and nothing gets to breathe. But it's like, oh, but I really want this other character in there. But working with Austin really helped me find what the core of the story was, who, which characters, like really only which characters, having them like just the ones that are important to this small portion, and can tell that story most effectively. Because there is, for my story, an element of there's a character who's passed away, that when the focus was too much on them, then it became a story about a person's death. And I was like, I worked back and forth with Austin of like, I don't want it to actually be about that, but I still want it to be important. And so us moving back and forth really helped to hammer it into what it ended up being. And I'm not sure that I would have been able to arrive at that without Austin's help. So that was really the best part of, working in the contest. It's collaborating.
All giving Austin love. This is unacceptable, but I'm gonna let it slide for now. Okay, so I want to finish up. First of all, I really want to say how appreciative I am you guys were here. Every year we do this, and I'm not as involved with it as you can imagine in the last several years, but every year we do this, I'm always struck at just the incredible amount of talent that's out there. And I believe in this process. Like I said, I put this thing together several years ago, and we've operated it, again, with minor, but it's been the same kind of gut part of it since we started. And it's always been for me so important because again, the hook of the industry, the importance of the industry, and I have this when I talk to, colleagues at Webtoon or other very big companies, and we talk about this, and I talk about the fact that to build this next class of great creators, I think we have to really understand, as Fred was discussing, we were talking about when I mentioned it, we have to understand the differences between the markets. That's such a crucial part of this. Again, Saturday wouldn't exist if it was easy to produce manga in Japan. You'd have to learn how to speak Japanese, you'd have to be able to, know Japanese culture, and you'd have to live in Japan. And those were all the requirements to produce manga, for the Japanese companies. It's changed now, but Saturday's been in business for a decade, and so a lot of the change was evident in the stuff that we made very clear as being really important, such as authenticity. Not appropriation, but authenticity. The ability to really kind of stick in terms of story down to the essence of what is a really good story. As Fred said, I thought really, really well. It's about turning the page, and this is a rule that I have internally with all of our artists, from J.O. and the White Manga to Oscar Fong and so on. About every chapter needs to have action. Every chapter should have action. I don't care if it's a 10-page chapter, a 15-page chapter, a 25-page chapter, it should have action. Does that mean a fight scene? No. But it means that if something's not happening, if the story is not progressing in some way that progresses along, well, then what exactly is the purpose of this? And again, this is not Japan. You don't have weeks to tell a fight scene. You have probably something's going to take you weeks to do, which will be 20 pages. So the construction of Summer of Manga has been so important, and it's just always very gratifying to see people who respond to elements of it. We don't talk about these things externally, obviously. So to do a chat like this and to hear you all commenting on some of the things that were put there specifically to harness the creative juices of creators, and especially creators who come from diverse backgrounds, because we want them to feel comfortable creating diverse characters, then it was so important to get all that stuff together. Now that you've been through the process, the next step for this, of course, is that we're going to launch the issue. This comes out on the 22nd. It'll be free for everybody as long as they have our app. In the past, people have checked it out from all over the industry, whether they're people who work at big companies or small publishers, whether they're people who work for groups who want to start a Saturday type operation. People always check out the stuff. And some people, we always have some people who leave very detailed critiques. I mean, like super detailed critiques. Obviously, it's the internet, as Damon said, so anything can happen. But I have been happy with the level of discourse that the reviews have gotten in the past. given that we have our first sponsor, given that in the past the end result was that we would publish these individuals, whoever were the best creators, we published them inside of our book, Saturday AM Annual, which I was just at the Barnes Noble store today, and they're ordering more copies of it, of the 2024 edition. Because of that, knowing now that we've got this publisher arrangement, knowing now that you have a chance to, they're going to get a big prize package, and then on top of that, have a chance to get a professional art contract. It may be a cover, it might be a short story. What is your end game in this industry in terms of where you want to be next? I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if any of you guys are doing this professionally as a normal means of your income, but what do you hope this whole thing and the outcome of this, assuming that that your work is really lauded and gets all the stuff that comes with winning the event, what do you want to have happen from a career standpoint? What are you hoping to do? Let's start off first with Goldie. Goldie, what are you hoping to accomplish with this?
I am really hoping for that contract, actually. I have been wanting to get my foot in the door professionally for years now. Like, I have a degree in animation, and the animation industry is actually like pretty bad off right now. So like, I swapped gears to comics, and I just have been dying to get into, even if it's like a small time company, anything, any contract. I've done comic commissions, I've done storyboard commissions, I've done stuff like that, and I've been really gunning on this sort of thing happening. And I want to continue to do more contests, especially if they have like this kind of thing, reward at the end.
That's fantastic. And you're right. The anime industry, even though I think we all probably love animation, the strike is happening now, right? Isn't the strike
Yeah.
happening right now? Right.
Yeah.
So you're right. This is a tough time for the animation industry. But now that you mentioned, I can see your artwork. I can see the animation ideas within your artwork. So that's really cool. I can see the influences of animation in there. So that's cool to hear. But yes, getting to that next step of getting a chance to work on something and starting to get your foot in the door in the professional comic industry that's obviously a strong wish that a lot of folks have. So I totally understand. Rooting for all you guys, but let's ask our next person, which in this case would be Emma, what Emma hopes to accomplish via this event.
Yeah, I'm still figuring a lot of things out, so kind of taking it step by step. But I have always had a dream of having like a physical printed volume of my work. So I think if that ends up, I would be really happy. But
It is amazing
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, just getting the chance to craft and tell stories that other people gain something from is, I think what brings all of us to this format of storytelling. So as long as I get to keep doing that, I'm happy.
I could not agree more, and I love that's what I was going to say. So you said, I was like, that's such a great way to put it. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's not a great way to put it. It's a reality that I think a lot of people. I certainly didn't realize it, but we're living in a digital age, and there is still something about having a physical product, especially if you worked on it. Like it is. It is. I was surprised when we got our book deal, and when I brokered the book deal, and we got a lot of creators to get their first books and so forth. I was really stunned at how much. I mean, in some cases, the books were already available digitally, or we had a good digital audience for it. But I was stunned at how much just having the physical unit, and of course, when the book is well produced, that's another thing. Just having a good quality book made with the right paper type and the right type of matte finish on the covers and so forth. It is. You're right. There's something very profound about that, and I would wish everybody gets to experience that at one point. So, totally understand on that. Let's go to Damon. Damon, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of learning that like you always kind of trying to break into the industry. Everybody I know is like always trying to make these connections happen. So for me, I mean, it's less about breaking in and more about continuing to get my name out there and get my face in front of people, my art in front of people, really. And and to have so that I can create more opportunities to keep working as a storyteller and keep working in comics to get better at it. And you know, if yeah, like more opportunities get paid to do it, basically. And that's the goal. I mean, I am doing this full time. I started doing it full time 2 years ago, and a lot of tears. So you gotta, but you know, so is life. You know what I mean? Not to say that to just be like give up, but like it's always hard. Death is coming. The point is, you know, to keep going.
Well, you said that right. I mean, yes, you said that very right. I mean, it is what it is. You're right. That's kind of the nature of the beast with this. But no, I think you hit the nail on the head. It you know, since you were at DC, I'll just say that Sanford Green is a frat brother of mine. He's a comic artist, been in the industry for 20 years, and he's you know he's very well respected. But he's starting to in the last several years things are really starting to click for him. He's really starting to get that kind of like big push. You know, he did the Doom comic book for Marvel. His comic called Bitter Roots about to become a movie through Ryan Coogler. And it's won a Eisner Award and all that fun stuff. I would certainly say, without question, right? I would certainly say, without question, that one of the things that is so special about this industry, and I think a lot of people miss it, is it's not the success, it's the longevity, right? It's the ability to be able to still be doing this 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and still be in demand on some level to be able to get work done. That seems to be the part that I think a lot of people miss, because that is the mark of success in this industry, is the longevity. I mean, if you create the next Naruto, that's awesome. That's not true from those 99% of the creators out there. Are not going to create the next Naruto or Deadpool. But just being and consistently able to produce content for different publishers, different writers, different creators, different artists, that does speak well to success in this industry. I think you're 100% on the right trail with that. And last but not least, Fred, what about you? What's next for you if you win this whole thing?
Well, shoot. Well, I mean, how could I wrap it up any better than life is short, death is coming? I mean, Damon hit it on the head right there.
He's a writer.
Yeah, it shows. It shows. I think short term, my next goal is graphic novel book deal. That's the 1 to 5 year, like just pitching it out there, getting my name out there. You know, just stuff that's been said before. And in the long term, I've been really inspired by Jeff Smith's Bone, and more recently, like Hellboy's always been there in the background, but like just the way that Mike Mignola and the crew is able to just jump around his chronology, where we know when Hellboy is born, we know when he dies and how, and you can just sort of start filling in stories in the middle. You know, that's kind of it's something with the scope of Bone, but you don't necessarily have to do it one after the other after the other. You mentioned how every chapter needs action, so you can just cut to the action and then cut to the action, cut to the action, even having the audience decide like, oh, I want to see this year. It's like, all right, I guess we're going to do this year. So that's the long term. But yeah, faster alone, farther together, building up my roots, building up my network, teaching on the side, keeping friends around, cooking.
That's cooking. That sounds wonderful. No cooking for me unless it's some Chef Boyardee or Captain Crunch. That's about the extent of my cooking ability. But what I guess so again, I want to thank you guys for this. Went a little longer than I intended, and I'm leave. You can say shut the lights stuff off, damn it. But I really appreciate this. This has been extremely for me, not just pleasant but rewarding. It's always really cool to see talented people like you guys, and then to hear the things that you're discovering in the process, and to both for myself see that some of the stuff that we're doing may be aiding in that, but then likewise to see some of the brilliant ideas you guys have and how that informs stuff that we might try to do or want to do in the future. And just all of that's, it's been a real pleasure, I got to say. And I know also had to leave early. We didn't have everyone on the call, but it's been a real pleasure talking to you guys tonight. I'm rooting for all of you. I can't wait to see people. I can't wait for people to see your work. and I've already talked to a few people in the industry, and in fact, the issue hits right. The issue hits and is available on the 22nd of August, and on the 23rd of August, my team and I will be, or a handful of us will be, in New York City for Anime NYC. We'll be doing a couple of panels. The first panel is on being a BIPOC creator in manga. We'll talk about the difficulties that that we face trying to create manga and not being per se part of what one thinks of as manga, either as creator or as the characters, as well as some of the difficulties we face being being a largely black-owned company that's trying to operate and create a business in the space, and some of the backlash that happens. People seem to really dislike seeing diversity be a focus. They seem to dislike seeing black people be the heads of companies. They really seem to dislike black cosplayers and black voice actors, and so the challenges we face are always quite significant. But I'm happy that we've got a great panel for a lot of black creators to actually discuss this in full. And then we have another panel. We'll be revealing not just this, but some other things we're doing to give creators like you guys a chance to get your work handled professionally. Whether it's, I can't get into it, but there'll be some more events like this we're doing. We're calling it Saturday Rising. And that panel will be hosted by wonderful Toasty Marshmallow, YouTube personality. So very excited about that. We're going to end it there. It's been a real pleasure. Gloria, again, real pleasure meeting you. Damon, real pleasure meeting you. Fred, Emma, I'm again, like I said, I can't tell you guys how impressed I am and how appreciative I am of the time you took to sit down and chat with us tonight. I really appreciate it. We'll get this all fixed up and put out there on the internet. If something crazy does happen with the connection or with the quality of it, then we may do something somewhere. I don't know. We may get you guys back for a quickie video thing again. But again, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, obviously, but I'll just ask you some straightforward questions, and we'll go from there. So, actually, how about we start off with a little introduction? How about you tell people about yourself, who you are, where you're from? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Maddie, but I go by Medic as my pen name. I'm from New York, United States, and I'm 22 years old, and I love making comics.
Awesome. Sweet. So, and your story is called Anthology. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I thought of the idea of well, I love mecha, who doesn't? And I like tournament fighting style manga, and I thought, why don't I just combine those two? And we got mecha gladiatorial combat, and it's about that, and our main character, Rudy, she pilots her mecha in a different way, very unexpected way than you might normally would. And it's almost a bit of a secret that she has to keep. But yeah, she's very determined to win the mecha fighting tournament of Anthology.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And what do you hope that people take away with your one shot?
I would say don't be afraid to do things differently.
Okay. Awesome. And from Summer of Manga, what do you feel like was the hardest part when working on all this hard work that you put in?
Definitely. I mean, in terms of the creative process, going from like the start to the finish, I would say doing a lot of the storyboarding, because you kind of have to like conceptualize that, like right from the brain down to the paper. From there, it gets a lot easier, all the inking and the rendering that you can do. But yeah, definitely the beginning, early parts of the process are definitely the most difficult part.
Understood, yeah. What do you think would be the inspiration for Anthology? I know you talked about mecha in general and and gladiatorial fighting and tournaments. All good stuff for shonen manga and stuff like that. But any specific titles that really speak to you, that really helped you with this title?
Yeah. Gurren Lagann, definitely one of my biggest inspirations, in terms of like for my style and for the story as well. Just making it weird and crazy. Yeah, I mean, I'm a really big Studio Trigger fan, so that's where all of the heart goes into it.
I'm glad you said that, because I definitely got Gurren Lagann vibes from working with you. So I really I'm glad that you said that, because
Yeah,
definitely comes off that way.
that's good.
But yeah, is what do you hope that do you think that people who love Gurren Lagann will really find all of that trigger style in your one shot?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, is there anything else that you feel like people should know about you or know about your one shot that maybe you haven't shared yet?
I wrote it down. It is a little bit cheesy, but I hope that people can take away from this and will feel the inspiration themselves to create things.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that's pretty much all the questions I have for you today. I guess that went by really quick. But any final closing thoughts or comments?
I guess to all the readers, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Awesome. Love that. All right. Well, thank you, Medic. And yeah, you can find Medic and Anthalion in this new issue of Summer of Manga, number 166. And you can also follow her at medic_art on Instagram. And yeah, see all of her lovely art styles.